Hey everybody, it's Nathaniel Avila, and I'm here with Timbrel Hildebrand. Hello.
Hello.
And today we're going to be watching Guy Ritchie's interpretation of the classic film Aladdin. Hooray! So, what's your opinion on this film?
I guess the best way to preface this is I really wanted to like this movie. Like when it first came out in what was it? Was it 2019?
It was 2019, yeah.
It was 2019. Yeah, I was still working at a movie theater at the time, so I watched it for free. But oh man, but the first time I think I didn't. Anyway, like I love Aladdin. Aladdin is probably my favorite, Renaissance Disney movie, and just one of my favorite Disney movies. So I really wanted this movie to be good, even though I was fairly. And I'll just say I was disappointed. Even though I tried to like it, I don't think it's just not a very good film.
Okay. Well, let's get some backstory about this film, which started all the way back in 2016 when it was announced that Guy Ritchie was gonna direct a live action Aladdin film for Walt Disney Pictures, with John August writing the script and Dan Lin and John Eyrick attached as producers. So the studio said that the film would be an ambitious and non-traditional take on the tale Aladdin, that would keep the musical elements of the original film. Um, and then they were like, we will like our cake, and we wanted to eat it too. So, on the non traditional aspect, the studio had originally planned for the film to be told in a non linear format. That could have been interesting.
Maybe.
Yeah. So in February 2017, Lynn said that they were looking for a diverse cast and that they would not try to make Prince of Persia. A nationwide casting call for the lead roles of Aladdin and Princess Jasmine commenced in March 2017, with principal production set to take place in the United Kingdom from July 2017 to January 2018. So on April 19th, 2017, it was reported that either Gabriel Iglesias or Will Smith were in talks to play the genie, for which the latter was confirmed in July. So on May 2017, the member of a British girl group called Little Mix, named Jade Thirlwall, was in charge talks to play the part of Princess Jasmine. On July 11th, 2017, it was announced that a principal production on Aladdin had been pushed back by a month to August 2017 due to struggles in finding the right actor to portray the titular role. So over 2,000 actors and actresses had auditioned for the roles of Aladdin and Jasmine, but finding a male lead of Middle Eastern or Indian descent in his 20s who can act and sing had been proven difficult for the producers. So it was down to either Naomi Scott or Tara Sataria to play Jasmine, but neither could be cast until a chemistry test was done with whoever would be cast as Aladdin. So the studio initially was interested in either Dave Patel or Riz Ahmed for Aladdin, but later decided to cast a relative newcomer. So it was either between Atraf Kutet, Mena Masad, and George Castaros, who were among the actors being tested for the role. So two musical film veterans, Mark Platt, who would serve as an executive producer on the film, and Chris Montan were consulted before the final decision was made. So on 2017, the D23 Expo, on July 15th, it was announced that Mena Masad would play the role of Aladdin and Naomi Scott as Jasmine, ending the 4-month-long open casting call. So on July 17th, 2017, it was announced that Disney had hired Vanessa Taylor to polish the original screenplay by August, specifically some character work. Meanwhile, Ritchie and the studio focused on casting the other main roles in the filming, slated to start on August in London. So so when asked about Ritchie's take on the film, Pasek and Paul described it as a very muscular action packed. So on December 20th, 2018, Gilbert Gottfried said that he was not asked to reprise his role as Iago. So So in March 2019, it was announced that Alan Tudyk would voice the character instead. On May 2nd, 2019, Welker, what was his name? Frank Welker would play the role of Raja again, and from the trailer confirmed that he would also reprise his role as the Cave of Wonders. And he was also reprising his role as Abu. And that is the story of the development of Aladdin by Guy Ritchie.
Well, looky there.
Mm-hmm. Would you say this film is muscular and action-packed?
I mean, it did have a lot of action in it, so I guess I could say it was kind of action-packed. Okay. I don't know what muscular necessarily means.
I don't know what that means either. But yeah, so this film is obviously supposed to be like a recreation of the original 1991 film, and I can tell they tried to make it different enough so it could be separated. Like in this film, I know that instead of having it start with, Aladdin stealing some bread and going into his musical number, it started right when he met Jasmine, who is pretending to be somebody else, who was pretending to be a commoner, and then he starts doing the singing. So what do we feel about that?
Well, I'll say this. Like, the first time I went to see this movie, like I told you, I went in kind of biased because I really wanted to like the movie. Like, I wanted it to be good because I loved Aladdin, and I wanted it to have obviously, I wasn't super jazzed about the live-action remake, because usually the live-action remakes leave stuff to be desired, but I thought, you know what, maybe it'll be kind of like the Beauty and the Beast remake. I still liked it. It's not as good as the original, but still it's fun to watch because it's cool to see a story that I really like done in live action. So I thought maybe they'll do that and it'll be good. But what I realized really quick right off the bat is that if this movie cannot exist on its own, because if you have not seen the original 1991, isn't that what you said, 91?
Yeah, it was 1991.
91 version. If I went into this movie and watched it without any knowledge of the original film, I would have no idea what was going on. The plot would feel super rushed, because it is. Because like you said, at the beginning, because the thing is, what they did in this movie that I think, because the problem with these new Disney remakes, or what I've noticed, is that I guess the problem is usually they try to make it a little too much like the original version, so it just feels like they're vomiting out the original one. That's kind of what I felt like the Beauty and the Beast or the Lion King did. And they also try to make it like new. So when those two things just don't work together, when you're vomiting out some and trying to throw in new stuff, all you get is a big mess. So that's kind of what I felt here. In that opening in particular, I felt really like it really sabotaged the movie right from the start, because in the original film, even though you have less time than you do in this movie, you get to know the characters. You have some time to get to know each of the titular characters. Like, you have time with that song, One Jump Ahead. You get to know, okay, this is who Aladdin is. We're getting to see just who he is. And then we get to know Jasmine in her own right, and then they bring the two of them together. By rushing it, where they both meet at the very beginning, and you don't get to really know who Jasmine is, they're assuming that the audience already knows who Jasmine is because they've seen the original movie and they already know who Aladdin is. Like, you're basically, like, you're throwing people into a story that you're assuming they already know. And I don't think that's very good storytelling, because, you're not setting up your own world. You're relying on the fact that your audience has already seen the previous movie, and that's just not good. It doesn't make for a very strong beginning. And so I did not think that worked well, and that's one of the things that stuck out to me right away at the beginning of the film, that, like, they sacrificed character development of the two main characters just because I feel like what they were doing is they were trying to get to Will Smith as fast as they possibly could, and they did that at the expense of adequately developing Jasmine and Aladdin. Sorry, that was a big mouthful. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it does. But yeah, it kind of reminds me of even before that narrative intro, there was this framing device in the, like, even before the titles and stuff, the openings credits. We see we see Will Smith right off the bat as he is credited as the Mariner at this point, And he's there, and he's all like, "Let me tell you the story of Aladdin and his friend the genie, who is totally not me." And and that's like where the framing device was, and I think it was supposed to replace the merchant in the original.
Yeah.
And I think I it might be like a nod to the theory that the merchant was actually the genie, that whole theory that was in the original. So they just had Will Smith just play the mariner in this framing device, and they made it incredibly obvious that they are one and the same. So how do we feel about that framing device?
Well, the thing is, I didn't really have a problem with that. Like, that didn't bother me that they wanted to start it off differently. In fact, I kind of liked the fact that they went ahead and let you know that, they went ahead and paid homage to that theory that the storyteller in the original version was the genie. Like, I liked that. I thought it was a nice way to tie it in where they were still making it their own and they weren't just doing, the original one. So I was like, okay, I could get behind this. But it was just, and I love that song Arabian Nights. That's an awesome opening scene. Like in the original version, it's so sweeping that like when he hits that part where he says Arabian Nights, it comes up and you see the whole city of Agrabah. It's really powerful, and just in this version, you don't have that kind of power because you don't get to go immediately into. I don't know. It didn't hit as hard as the original one did. I guess just because it wasn't quite as exciting. Just watching like little snapshots of the city as opposed to the real sweeping crane shots that they had in the animated version.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, again, I didn't hate that opening. It was more that what followed wasn't particularly satisfying.
Yeah, I have
like,
this.
Because if I'm not mistaken, like they don't even do that scene where Jafar tricks the thief into going into the Cave of Wonders, right? That doesn't even happen in this version, right?
We only see it like as the thief is walking in, and then he dies. That whole dialogue exchange it wasn't in there.
Okay, that's what I thought. Like, you don't really even get that. And that was such a great opening to the original movie. I talked about it in our podcast when we talked about that movie, that, like, I loved how they opened up with the villain instead of the hero, because you got to see right away, oh my goodness, this guy is bad news. What is he going to do next? And then you had that nice little transition into getting to know who Aladdin is, because I must find this diamond in the rough. And poof, there's Aladdin getting into shenanigans. This one just didn't have that punch. Because, again, I feel like they were relying too much on the nostalgia of the audience rather than just trying to tell a good story in an interesting way.
Right. Also, I want to give a correction. It's actually 1992.
Oh, my bad. 1992.
Yeah, that was also my bad because I was saying 1991 also.
It's all good.
Yeah. So, so that brings us to like, what do you think about the casting of Marwan Kenzari as Jafar? Because I know that casting choice was met with some criticism when it was announced.
I mean, the only criticism I'd have of him is I just don't think there was anything special about his performance. I didn't get that same sort of evil feeling that the animated character had. He didn't have the same presence. I don't know what it was. I personally wasn't super impressed with the actor's performance. He just kind of seemed flat. Like, there wasn't anything interesting about him. Like, Jafar is one of the more interesting Disney villains, I find, because they, especially, like, with his interactions with Iago in the original movie, because, like, you see that, like, he's evil, but also they give him more character, so he's not just, I am evil, which is really what this Jafar felt like, because he didn't have any, like, hills or valleys. It was just kind of one thing. I'm just bad, and I'm going to tell you about how bad I am in a very cocky-sounding voice. It didn't feel like Jafar. It felt like, oh, this is the bad guy. Okay.
Right. And they gave him, like, this backstory about, like, I was just like you. I was a common thief.
Yeah.
So I
didn't hate that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of a more interesting thing that they could have built on, but they didn't really build on it. It was just something he sort of said in passing, so it felt kind of like, oh, let's give him something. So here's a line. But there was there was nothing special about it.
Yeah, I think the only reason why he was told that was because later on in the film, he does like this pickpocket thing to steal the lamp from Aladdin.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, and so that's probably the only reason why that was said. And yeah, so like comparing between his performance and Jonathan Freeman's performance in the original, Jonathan Freeman gave Jafar like this deep voice, like this deep booming like maniacal voice, which like really shows like the evilness and the big powerfulness that this guy had, like this like hunger for power that this guy had. As when Kansari, I don't know if it was his acting or just he was directed this way. He mostly talks like very soft and like flat, where he's like, I'm just I'm gonna become the Sultan, and that's
he felt very, I guess, just cookie cutter villain. Like
right.
Everything that made him special and interesting in the original movie, I feel like they did away with. And again, like I feel like they did that to a lot of the characters in this movie. Like characters that were interesting in the original movie are not as interesting in this because they don't spend enough time characterizing them. Like they're just kind of there and this is who I am. I'm the bad guy. Blah blah blah. You know, like. And it's really a shame, I think, because these are interesting characters.
Yeah, and then I also just straight up forget that the carpet was around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and there's the carpet, yeah.
The carpet was there, but I constantly forget that he's in this film because he's so underused. Let me see.
It's true.
So, like, like, what do you also, like, in addition to Jafar, what do you think about Alan Tudyk's portrayal of Iago in this film is?
I mean, it's not like you really even get to see it. He has maybe 2 lines through the whole movie, and that's a shame too because Alan Tudyk is a great actor, and he does phenomenal voice work. Like you hear him in a bunch of movies. He was the Duke of Weaseltown and Frozen. He's hilarious. He just has this very cartoony voice that could have been a lot of fun as Iago, but everything again, like Iago. Everything fun about him they took out of this movie. Like, there was nothing fun about him. And it didn't really make sense that he talked. They were trying to make him just a regular parrot, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm right in thinking that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they just made him, like, just sound like an actual parrot.
Which is, like, it's fine if you want to do it that way. But, I mean, I think it'd be better just to not have him talk at all, rather than... Like, I guess in the grand scheme of things, like, him not talking isn't the hugest deal, but I will say that, like, Iago was a lot of what helped characterize Jafar in the original movies. Having that crony, that sounding board, like, kind of, like, it helped. It helped Jafar have kind of, like, a muse that he was figuring out his evil plan through, and he also brought out the more, like, evilly comic portion of Jafar, which is completely absent in this version.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't mind them taking a different approach, but again, like, if they were going to take Iago out, they needed to characterize Jafar more on his own, which you didn't see. Like, he was super flat.
Right. And I also believe that the purpose of Iago in the original film was that he was supposed to be like this, like I guess a kind of like a meta commentary or a parody of the second in command to the villain, who would constantly just parrot things that the main villain would say.
Yeah.
Where he was like, I will rule the world, and then the sidekick was like, yeah, he'll rule the world, and just that kind of thing. And I think it was supposed to be like a commentary on that. It was like, that's how
it was really funny because he wasn't quite like that. He had his own 2 cents to say. It was super fun.
Yeah. And there was another thing. Like the Iago was also, I believe, a character from a Shakespeare play called Othello.
Yeah, he's an awesome character.
Yeah. So the character is he's here, he's doing stuff, and then what do we think about the 2 main characters, the male and the female lead, that is Aladdin and Jasmine?
Well, okay. For Jasmine, I think the girl who played her, she did the best with what she had. So I think she's actually pretty talented. So I cut her a little slack. You told me about like how much time they spent looking for a good actor to play Aladdin, and personally, I don't think they made the best decision because you said they were looking for someone who could sing and act, and I don't feel like what's his name, who played him, what was his last name?
Masad.
Like, I just don't feel like he was very strong on either of those fronts. I could have forgiven him for not having great singing chops, but his acting there was nothing very impressive about it. He was just kind of, again, it was kind of like Jafar. He kind of just played one level throughout the movie. He was kind of flat and wooden. You didn't really feel for him. You felt for Aladdin in the 90s version. We got to see how he was funny, but kind of cocky, and he also hurt, but with Aladdin here, you don't really hurt for him. You don't really feel for him. I mean, his chemistry with Jasmine was okay, but it was so rushed that, you didn't really feel much. Like, I don't know, I just didn't find him a very convincing actor. He just, I don't think I don't know if it was the way he was directed, but he himself, I just didn't find, I think he got hired more because he was very pretty than the fact that he was good at acting. I don't know, I just feel like the charm that Aladdin had in the original movie, we don't get with this actor here. I'm not saying he's terrible, he's not a terrible actor. I felt like he was kind of flat. I didn't empathize with him, and I think the mark of a good actor is when you're empathizing with them, even if they're the villain. And how much more do you need to empathize with the hero? So, I don't know, I felt kind of disappointed with his acting in comparison to some of the other actors they were considering, like Dev Patel, who's a phenomenal actor. I don't know if you've ever seen Slumdog Millionaire, but he's just everything I've ever seen Dev Patel in. He's amazing. I don't know if he can sing. Maybe that's why they didn't hire him. But I feel like there were better actors out there. And I mean, like, there are plenty of Middle Eastern actors out there they could have chosen from, and that I've seen in movies. Like, I'm pretty sure they could have cast a wider net.
Yeah. Did you
That's just my feeling. I feel like he was hired a little bit more for his face than for his chops.
You could very well be right. Did you like Dave Patel in The Last Airbender?
He was honestly the only good actor in that movie. Like, that's the sad thing about that movie. Like, I watch him in that, and I'm like, oh, Dev Patel, why are you in this movie?
Yeah.
You're too good for this.
So, so I have a couple thoughts about Aladdin, especially in this film. We see him become like less empathetic, and more like you can see like how he's starting to change. The power is getting to his head once, like, the longer he's staying as this prince that he was portraying, because like in the original, he did not want to free the genie because he felt that Jasmine would not like him if he was just himself, and he felt really bad about it too. But in this one, he really comes off as like an Anakin type person who's being tempted by the dark side, where you can see like how he like I like being powerful. I want to stay powerful, and I can't do it without you because you're now my prisoner now, genie. So that kind of came across like that a little bit. Now I love Naomi Scott. She is amazing.
She was good. I give her props. She did the best she could do with what she was given, I think.
Yeah. No, I was a fan of her since her Lemonade Mouth days.
Oh my word.
What? Did you like that film?
No.
Oh, snap. But yeah, like I watched her in Lemonade Mouth. She was fine in Charlie's Angels. But I absolutely love Naomi Scott. I am a fan. Did you like her like the new song that was specifically for her in this film?
One thing, okay, and this is another thing. I know, I'll just put disclaimer. Like, I don't have many positive things to say about this movie. She, on the other hand, like, her performance, I thought was good. I enjoyed what she brought to the table. Like, I think even of course, I would have liked to have seen more development of it. Like, I think she did I guess, you know how they didn't really give them much time to develop their characters. With her, I think since she had stronger acting chops, she was able to kind of still embody who Jasmine was supposed to be. And I didn't mind some of the things they added, like where she was kind of like wanting to rule the kingdom. But I will say, a lot of the stuff they had her do, it felt very heavy-handed. And I'm all for, like, a strong female character. I love me some strong female characters. You know, I think there's some great examples in Disney movies of, you know, independent female characters. But for this, it feels like they were trying... It felt very heavy-handed. It's like they were doing it just for the sake of doing it, with her, like, wanting to be Sultan, which would never have happened in that time period.
Right.
Never would have happened. And I guess, like, that song that she sings, which my brother pointed out that she's talking about not being silent while she's singing this entire song in her head and not talking.
Yeah.
So it seems a little counterintuitive. But yeah, like, just all of her strength, I feel like they should have just let her strength speak for itself than just constantly reminding the audience, oh, by the way, she's a strong character. Like, I feel like actually strong female characters don't need that in order to appear strong. However, I do think she had the strongest acting chops and the strongest singing voice. So for that, I do applaud her, because I think her acting really shined in the midst of kind of like mediocre performances that made up most of the film.
Yeah. And I know I've been kind of like tiptoeing around this next topic because I think it's a very like important topic, and probably the most talked about topic when it comes to this film, and that is Will Smith's performance as the genie.
Oh yeah, we can't talk about it without talking about that.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts?
Honestly, like, I feel bad for him because he had an impossible job. Like, he was stepping, and I said this in the last one that we did, when we did the one about the original Aladdin, like, no one, regardless of whoever they had cast in this role, like, no one was ever going to be able to fill Robin Williams' shoes, because what he brought to the original Genie was just so unique and so his own that no one was going to be able to copy it. So I think the reason they went with Will Smith was because they hoped that Will Smith would bring something completely different. And I think he did. Like, I think he did the best. Again, kind of like with Naomi Watts, I think he brought the best he could with what he was given. But I think it's pretty obvious throughout the film that they just hired him to be Will Smith. Like, that's kind of who he is throughout the entire movie. And he's funny, he's charming, don't get me wrong. Like, I enjoyed watching him. He made me laugh several times. But it is very clear that they're just like, we're going to cast Will Smith, as the genie. So that was just kind of my feeling, that it didn't feel like there was anything necessarily new brought to the table. Again, like kind of how I felt with Aladdin. Like, we didn't really get to feel for him as much as we did with the original genie.
Right, I definitely agree with that, because it's a very big shoes to fill and a very big shadow. So like I know that like in the second act of this film, it basically becomes like, I think like a wingman film, like a set this guy up with the girl type film.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Will Smith, remember Hitch? Do Hitch.
It's Hitch and Agrabah.
I know, yeah. So, like, just do that. And then also, what do we feel about the romantic relationship between him and Dahlia?
Honestly, it was probably more compelling than some of the other relationships in the film. I absolutely love the actress who plays Dahlia. She, her name won't come to me. I don't know what her name is, but she was on Saturday Night Live for a while, and she is just hilarious. I love her. I was okay that they added her in. Like, she brought some nice levity, which I thought was cute. But again, like, the levity, again, since it felt thrown in, I felt like she was kind of illy used. Which I feel bad for her on that account, because I think she's a very talented performer, and she deserved better than that. But I did like her, and I thought the little relationship with her and Genie was cute. Again, it felt a little thrown in. That would be my critique of it, though.
Right. Her name is Nasim Pedrad, also.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, yeah, so she is, like, a newly created character, and I know that she was, according to this, she was, put in for comedic relief, though I don't know why, because I think we already have a comedic relief in the Genie, but I mean that's okay. That's okay too. Let me see what else we got. Also at the end of the film, I know that one of the genie said that his wish was not just to be free, but to become human. That's the new thing. So when Aladdin gave him his wish, he no longer became a genie. He is now a human, which is different from what the original one was, which he still remained. He still kept his status as a genie, but he's just a free genie. But in this one, he's just a human. What do we feel about that?
I liked that dynamic. I thought it was interesting how he kind of he spent his whole existence helping other people live, and he's never really gotten to live his own life. He's always just helping other people find their own dreams, and he doesn't really get to discover his own. So I thought that was interesting because it brings a more interesting dynamic. He wants to feel what humans feel. He wants to fall in love. He wants to have a family. I think that's that's an interesting and creative avenue to take. So actually, that was one of the things that I think that was pretty interesting. But again, kind of like everything else, it's not like it was really expounded upon in a super meaningful way. But again, I think that's one of the things I'd say I didn't have a problem with that. I thought that was an interesting dynamic. What did you think?
The dynamic of who and who?
Of him wanting to be human.
Oh, him wanting to be human? It's definitely different. I do like that it's different from what the original was. And it also I know that it also ends with Will Smith as the mariner continuing to tell these stories to his two children, which definitely opens it up to a sequel. Do we want a sequel?
Oh, please no. Please no sequel.
Well, too late, because Disney confirmed that there's going to be an Aladdin 2.
No.
Aladdin 2 coming out soon.
Well, maybe if they have to come up with completely original material, maybe it'll turn out really good. Who knows? Yeah.
What I would really like to see, I would really like to see them do other stories from the 1001 Nights.
That could be interesting.
Yeah. So I think that would be really cool. And I know that they said that if they would do a sequel, it would not be Return of Jafar or King of Thieves. Which is definitely will help them make them more original. Also, I know that they originally wanted to Disney originally wanted to make a prequel film to Aladdin called Genies, which was about the genie and his origin story. Would we like to see that?
I mean, that could be interesting. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
I guess my problem with this movie is that it doesn't feel like a lot of work went into really beefing up the story. It feels very much like a cash grab because it doesn't feel like there's a lot of heart in any of it. So that's my main issue with it, because it feels very much like what it is. It doesn't feel like much effort was put into the story.
Yeah. And
they were just trying to kind of hit all the bases. Okay, let's be nostalgic. Oh, let's make sure that we remind the audience that Jasmine is a strong female character. Let's make sure to hit that base. We got to make sure that there's a lot of Will Smith. Everybody loves Will Smith, so let's just make Will Smith as he can be. Oh, and kids like goofy stuff, so let's have some goofy moments and stuff like that. Yeah, it felt like the heart of the movie wasn't there.
Right. And I think the biggest example of the lack of heart in this film comes from the musical number of Brand New World. And
A Whole New World?
A Whole New World, yes.
Oh, yeah, that was disappointing. I love that song, and this movie, it's just not as... And that's another thing, I feel like we could talk about is, the heavy use of auto-tune, which we kind of talked about last week when we were talking about Beauty and the Beast. It really takes away, I think, it takes away from my enjoyment of the movie, because I don't feel like I'm hearing real vocals. And with the exception of Naomi Scott, I feel like she felt the most raw out of everyone, because honestly, I'm pretty sure she's the one that can sing the best. But yeah, that really took me away, because Lea Salonga, and who played the singing voice of Jasmine in the original movie, she has just this lovely voice that didn't need like a lot of pitch correction and stuff like that. No, it wasn't perfect, but that was kind of, it was just like she was a good singer, and so there were a couple of imperfections because she's human. I don't know, like that stuff bugs me because it sounds like I'm listening to a synthesizer.
Yeah.
Listen to that, someone singing.
So like, what really for like the most disappointing aspect to that song to me was the fact that they didn't really go all in on the visuals like in the original did, where they went into like all these different like countries and stuff, where they went to like they went to Greece and they went to Egypt and they went to China. In this one, they just like, let's just fly around Agrabah of more of the same buildings, and that's it. And that's like, you can see that's like how much they didn't really put that much into it. And so like, also Guy Ritchie, the director, he is not known for making musicals. He's never made a musical before, and after watching this film, it definitely really shows how how much lack of experience he has on making musicals. Because if you look in some of the dance sequences, you can see that they were sped up. Also,
yeah, I noticed that was weird.
Yeah, like he couldn't figure out what to do, so he's like, just speed it up and get that auto-tune in, and that's a musical.
And well, I thought it was interesting that they tried to give some of the songs a little bit more of like a Bollywood feel. Like, that was interesting, I thought, but again, like, I don't think it was super well done, so it didn't really make much of a difference. Like, it could have been real interesting to kind of give all the songs this new kind of Bollywood feel to sort of, even though Agrabah is not India, so I don't see how that culture that takes place there, but I don't know, Agrabah made up anyway, so I guess it works.
Right. Like, I know that in the end credits, that they have that whole Bollywood dance sequence, which I know like during like classic Bollywood, they would end all their films with this giant dance sequence.
Yeah.
So they referenced that by having this film have a giant dance sequence at the end for the wedding. Oh yeah, the wedding. They had the wedding that took place in King of Thieves. So I guess not. I guess we won't have that. I mean, so like, yeah, so there was a giant dance sequence, and so yeah, so there was that. Even though I know that Aladdin is actually an Iraqi tale, and I think it's supposed to be set in Saudi Arabia, but then again, you're like, as you said, it is a fictional city, so I guess
it always felt more like the Middle East to me, because they were making allusions to the Muslim faith, which is more prominent in the Middle East, not so much in India. You'd have more of the Hindu faith, so that's what stuck out to me as like being a telltale sign of where it's supposed to take place. But again, like, it's made up, so who knows?
Yeah, who knows? So like, yeah, so that's the entire story of the live action 2019 Aladdin. Oh, and also I think I know what you're thinking. That guy, the Prince Anders guy from that one scene. Remember him, the Swedish guy, the Scandinavian
the white dude? Yeah.
Yeah, I know we liked him so much. He should get his own Disney Plus film. Oh no! Right?
But he was really good in Into the Woods.
Oh yeah, he was in Into the Woods.
He was one of the ridiculous princes. He was very funny.
Yeah.
And I think he was funny in this, but again, like, it was kind of needless, his character.
Well, we'll be seeing a lot of him in a new Disney Plus film that was announced on December 6th, 2019.
Wait, seriously?
Yep, I'm not making this up. This is real.
Oh my word. What? Why?
We gotta get that money.
Word. No, and also another thing that I feel it should be noted, like, I do not like what they did with the Sultan in this movie.
Oh yeah, the Sultan. What's your opinion on him?
Well, the thing is, like, I don't think they did his character very well. You know, like, he was supposed to be funny, but in this they just kind of made him pathetic.
Really?
Which I didn't like that. Like, the Sultan's supposed to be a little bit, eccentric and a little bit, oblivious, but he's not supposed to be pathetic. So I wasn't crazy about that.
Yeah, like, the Sultan, like came across as like really serious to me in this film. Like he was definitely not as goofy as he was in the original film. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And like, dude, like, yeah. So, like, he was pathetic. How was he pathetic?
I just mean, like, because again, like many of the other characters in this film, they don't characterize him as much. You know, like, that's the thing. Like Jafar, Iago, the Sultan. I feel like they all really take a back seat in this movie in regard to character development, or at least like in characterization, I suppose. Not so much development, but like the characters are not very well developed. And the thing about the Sultan is that like while it was supposed to be obvious that he probably wasn't the best fit to rule his kingdom, like, you know, obviously he was a little bit oblivious to what was going on within his own walls.
Mm-hmm.
He still, like, you got to see his connection to Jasmine and stuff like that, which is pretty much absent in this film. Like, we don't get to see that nice relationship that we got to see in the original movie, like, with, you know, obviously, yeah, the Sultan was trying to get her to get married, but the reason he was doing it is, like, you could clearly tell it was because he cared about her a lot. In this, he kind of just strikes you as sort of this weak old man who doesn't have the guts to really run his own country, so he lets his advisor walk all over him, and it's just, it doesn't make him a very compelling character at all.
Yeah, and it also, like, comes across as, like, the reason why he wants Jasmine to get married is for Agrabah just to have another ruler so he doesn't have to do it anymore. So, like, yeah, man, like, also going back to Jafar, what do you think about, like, I know that a lot of people got criticized about Marwan Kenzari's casting was because he was conventionally attractive.
I mean, that doesn't bother me. I mean, they cast attractive people in roles all the time. I think they probably just should have focused more on hiring a better actor, because I just don't think he was the best actor. So maybe they should have spent less time worrying about his face and more about his acting chops.
Oh, snap, you got called out.
Like, kind of like you said, we can't completely blame him for it, because you don't know what's going on with the director. Directors can have a big impact on how an actor acts. So we can't put it all on him, but I will say that, like, he was very flat.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But no, the fact that he was attractive, like, that didn't swing me. I don't really care what an actor looks like as long as they're doing their role correctly.
Right.
And that's just, you know, him and Aladdin, I felt like they just didn't really quite cut the mustard.
Yeah. Did Jafar sing in this film?
He didn't.
Oh, snap! Because I know that he had a like a verse of a reprisal.
Yeah, he had a reprise in the original movie, and it was really cool. But no, not in this one.
Yeah, well, maybe they thought or maybe he's not that good of a singer, so maybe we should not do that. So, like, also,
I'm not sure if any of them are good singers.
Oh,
it's also auto-tuned.
Like, also, like, in the Cave of Wonders scene, we see Aladdin just free climb this giant pillar, and then he takes the lamp, and then he manages to get to the entrance, and Jafar is like standing over him, and he's like hanging there, and he's like, "Can I have a little help here?" And I'm like, "Dude, you can obviously climb yourself up, because I just saw you free climb a giant pillar. You can obviously."
And another thing. Oh yeah, sorry. Go on.
No, that was pretty much done.
I guess also the special effects in this movie I didn't find particularly, like, impressive. Like, they just kind of felt very saturated with CGI.
Yeah, I remember when the first trailer dropped, and we first saw Will Smith as the genie, and a lot of people thought the CGI looked awful in the first trailer. And they tried their best to recreate it. They tried to Sonic the Hedgehog it, but I don't know if it was any much of an improvement. Yeah. So yeah, that was Aladdin, Guy Ritchie version. So what would your rating for this film be?
What's that?
What would you rate this film?
I mean, I hate to give any film, like, a completely bad score, because there are still interesting elements this movie. The costume design was very. I always like to at least point out some of standing. I will say that certain sequences were sort of interesting visually in regard to the cinematography and whatnot. So, but I guess I feel like there's just not a lot that's really good about this movie, just because it was kind of it's pretty obvious that it's just a cash grab. I'd probably give. How about you?
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut up for a little bit. What was the rating?
Oh, sorry. I'd probably give it 4 out of 10.
Oh, okay. I would give it like a 4 or 5 out of 10 as well, because I do give it points for trying to be different, but that's basically just A for effort type thing, and at least they were not just very shameless about it like they did with The Lion King, where they just copied and pasted the first script. And
no kidding.
Yeah. I remember when I was watching The Lion King in theaters, I was like, I think this is literally just the first film. I think I'm just watching.
It just makes you want to watch the original one.
Oh yeah. Also, yeah, if you want to see Aladdin, the same aspects of Aladdin, just done a million times better, just watch it. Watch the original 1992 version. And also, I remember I watched this film in theaters. Also, I went with my cousin, and my cousin once removed, who was, I think, 16 or 17 at the time, and I think she never seen the original Aladdin, so, and I think she said she liked this film, and I think the only reason why is because she never saw the original. So
yeah.
So I was like, you better go watch the original, girl. This is a lot better. And then she was like, I'll think about it, old man. I'm kidding. She didn't say that, but she was like, yeah, whatever. But yeah. So that was Aladdin. I would say skip this one. Watch the original, and that's it. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to a Vision podcast, home of Wacky Talkies, The Kingdom, Evil Exists, and many more.